In this video, we're going to show you how to install the rear upper control arm on your Ford Taurus located on the rear suspension. Using a 19mm socket, loosen and remove the lug nuts. With the lug nuts removed, you can now grab that wheel and remove it and set it aside. On the top bolt here, we're going to use our 15mm gear wrench. Once you have the upper bolt removed, go ahead and loosen and remove the lower. Go ahead and remove that bolt, set it aside. Go ahead and work that caliper and bracket off and just set that right here. Now on the top of the control arm here, where it attaches to the knuckle, we have a bolt going through to the nut. Now the nut itself is going to be a 15/16, and then the bolt head is a 21mm. What I'm going to do is gently push in on the knuckle here and work this bolt out. I'm going to use my 21mm socket over here just to try and zip this bolt out. Now the knuckle may drop away a little bit. Now on the inboard portion here, on the inside of the coil spring, you're going to locate these two bolts right here. These are 18mm, and these go up into the upper control arm block into the subframe. Now we're going to use a 1/2" drive extension and a swivel. We need to loosen and remove these. Now the inboard bolt right here, this is 18mm, and the back is a capture nut, so we don't have to hold that. We can go ahead and use a gear wrench or a regular wrench on this here. We're going to use our boxed wrench. And we need to go ahead and loosen this. Now we can only bring that bolt out so far before it hits the body here. So after we loosen this here, make sure that we're able to get this out. We're then going to go ahead and move to the subframe and lowering that portion. And we just spray this down, let it soak for a little bit. Now you may notice that tab on the back rotating. It's only going to rotate so far before it hits on the other side, and it's going to lock itself in place. And then we have it, we're able to pull off the back nut, but we can't pull the bolt out because it hits the body of the car. What we're going to do is use our pole jack on the rear of the vehicle. We want to go ahead and support this rear cradle. Our rear differential is bolted to it. So we're going to go ahead and just put our jack underneath that. And we're not going to lift it, we're just going to support it. Now if you're doing this job on the ground, the front of the vehicle is probably on the ground, and this isn't going to pertain to you. If your vehicle is on a lift, this will pertain to you. You want to go ahead and put another jack underneath the front cradle of the vehicle. We're using a pole jack, and all we're doing is going to raise this till it hits it, just to support it. The reason why we're doing this here is when we unbolt that rear cradle, we don't want that all that weight separated from the body, and then the front body weight drops down in the front. That's a safety issue, so this is going to be here just to support the body. Now our cradle is held in place by 4 21mm bolts. We're going to use our socket here and our impact gun. We're going to start on the driver's side. Right behind the coil spring, you're going to locate the other subframe bolt. Now, if you notice the length of this bolt that was actually up into the body, now if we feed this back up and in, we can see how much is here. Now what we're going to try doing is threading this bolt in maybe about 1 inch. I'm going to go ahead and do the same for the forward bolt. And we're going to keep these here for now as a capture bolt as we go ahead to lower the cradle. If it comes down too far, this will be a stopper for it, so it won't drop down too far. So let's go ahead and throw that forward bolt back in just a few threads. Now that we have these 2 bolts threaded in about 1 inch on the driver's side, we're going to go to the passenger side and we're going to loosen those bolts on the other side. We're not going to remove them, but we're going to loosen them enough so that we can go ahead and drop our cradle down. I'm going to disconnect our sidebar end link using a 15mm socket. We're going to unbolt our shock here. It's an 18mm on the bolt head here and a 21mm on the nut. Now we're using another pole jack underneath our control arm here because the suspension travels out and extends the shock all the way, so that bolt kind of gets stuck. If you jack this up slightly and compress the shock, we should be able to get that bolt out. On the bottom right here, we would pull our ABS wire out. We're going to remove this 8mm bolt right here. And you can always do this after the control arm is out, or you can do it now. Go ahead and remove that and set it aside. Release the jack off of the control arm. I'm going to go ahead and lower our jack supporting the cradle. Now, in order for us to drop our cradle down just far enough, we do need to go ahead and remove the driver's side subframe bolts here. What's happening is the cradle comes down, it's coming out at an angle, and it's hitting the bolts and causing them to bind up. Now we're going to go ahead and lower our cradle by lowering our pole jack a little bit further. Now putting our pry bar right behind the block here. And we can go ahead and remove that control arm. Take our new control arm and we're going to feed this back. I want to get that block into the subframe. Once that block is in the subframe, we can now push the forward portion of the control arm up into place and get that bolt installed. Now the bolt or the nut itself has this little J hook on it that's going to slip over the ear of the back of the chassis. So what we're going to do is slide this over. We're going to hook this on and then feed the bolt through it. You can see how that just spun around there. I'm going to go ahead and thread this down as far as I can by hand. Now this isn't going anywhere. Let's go ahead and jack our subframe back up and start to get all the bolts back in. Go ahead and get your subframe bolt up into place. And we'll start that. Install the front bolt. Now that we have the two driver's side bolts in, we're going to go ahead and use our pole jack, raise up the rear cradle, and tighten these all down. Getting torque down all four of these subframe bolts to 148 foot-pounds. With the subframe secured and torqued, we're going to remove our pole jack and relocate this to underneath our control arm. You remove the front jack here. Let's go ahead and compress up our suspension here. Now I want to grab our upper control arm and we want to position this so we can get our bolts in. Go ahead and do the same for this one here. We now want to go ahead and compress our suspension to what we call a neutral ride height. And the neutral ride height consists of is if we had the wheel on the car and we set it on the ground, that wheel would be at its neutral ride height. So we want to compress our suspension here. Now at this point here, our vehicle is just about to start to come off our lift and our suspension is compressed to a neutral ride height. We can go ahead and tighten down our shock. And we're going to tighten down the upper control arm and then we're going to go ahead and torque all of those. I'm going to go ahead and throw my wrench on here. I'm going to get the nut started on the other side. And I'm just gently going to snug that down for now. Let's go ahead and snug down this bolt. Going to go ahead and torque this bolt down to 52 foot-pounds. Let's torque down the shock nut here to 129 foot-pounds. Going to lower down our jack just a little bit. Get that nut started. torque it down to 41 foot-pounds. Now on the top side here, you want to go ahead and get our control arm positioned down. Basically push that knuckle inward. And we have a bolt starter here, but it's not lining up on the other side. What we may have to do is lower our jack from underneath the vehicle and let the suspension droop down a little bit to get this bolt lined up. Once that bolt goes through, install the nut, and then before you tighten and torque it, raise and compress that suspension again. Now right now, our suspension is kind of twisted a little bit, so we can't get the bolt all the way through. You can see that the bolt here is kind of crooked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my socket extension and my bar here, and I'm going to just twist this and tap it through. Install the nut. Once we have that bolt in and the nut on, we can go ahead and compress our suspension again. With the suspension compressed, go ahead and tighten down the bolt. Go ahead and torque down the upper nut here to 122 foot-pounds. Go ahead and lower your suspension. And remove the jack. Now with the two inner bolts here, you do not have to have the suspension compressed because this is a fixed aluminum block. The bushing itself goes through the inside, which is already set. So now we can just go ahead and tighten these down. Get and install the bolts. Install the ABS wire. Take your brake caliper, bring that over. I want to make sure that your brake pads are spaced properly. Slide this over the brake rotor. Once you have both of these tightened down, let's go ahead and torque them down to 76 foot-pounds. Now that you have these torqued, you want to hop into the vehicle, pump up that brake pedal, make sure that that brake caliper has been pinched or compressed here. Go ahead and install your wheel, then you can take it for a road test down to your local alignment shop. Grab your wheel, get that put onto the studs. Now we're going to go ahead and install all of our lug nuts by hand, and once we get them started, we'll go ahead and snug them down. When doing this here, it's preferred if you do it in a crisscross or a star pattern. Now let's go ahead and torque them down. Now let's go ahead and torque down our lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. And preferably you want to do this in a crisscross pattern. And you're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.